But because our Shastras talk about Krishna and try to explain his inconceivable nature, then we will examine what the Acharyas have to say, what Srila Prabhupada has to say. And like that, we'll try to get some sense of who God is. So, when I was preparing for this class, I read a few times the purport to 911 Bhagavad Gita. And those who know this verse can chant with me. Avajananti mamudha manusham tanumashritam param bhavam ajananto mama bhuta maheshwaram. Translation: Fools deride me when I descend in this human form. They do not know my transcendental nature and my supreme dominion over all that be. So, this purport is actually one of the longest purports in the Bhagavad Gita. And the verse itself is Krishna is pointing out to Arjuna that there are those who don't understand his inconceivable transcendental nature. They see Krishna walking around with, 2 legs and 2 arms, and they're bewildered by this because he looks like us. Many times people look at the deity on the altar and accuse us of anthropomorphism, right? That you've created a God that's like you, because somehow they have this idea that spiritual must be not like us. And it's an interesting philosophical question. Where did that idea come from? Why does spiritual have to look like the opposite of us? Right? We can ask them that question. You're saying we're being anthropomorphic, right? By worshiping a God that looks like a human being. Well, what makes you think God shouldn't look like a human being? Where did that idea come from? So the idea that, you're accusing us of being anthropomorphic is just as baseless as the other side, that God shouldn't look like us, because neither of those ideas have any foundation in anything higher than just your own mind, right? So anyway, so that's why Krishna is saying that people don't understand his transcendental nature. And in this very nice and long purport, I just want to read a small section, because if we read the whole purport and discuss it, it'll take a long time, and I have a few things I wanted to present to everyone. But there's a nice section here that's really nice. Yeah. Where did I go? Sorry. Yeah. There are many controversies amongst the impersonalists and the personalists about the Lord's appearance as a human being. But if we consult Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, the authoritative texts for understanding the science of Krishna, then we can understand that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. I remember when I read this statement last night, it really struck me, because I was appreciating how Prabhupada, when he came to America, he wasn't just interested in presenting a generic idea of spirituality, that we're not this body and that happiness comes from non-material sources. He spoke about those things, but he was very clear. He wanted to establish the idea of a positive alternative to reality, right? He didn't want to just leave it at you're not this body and happiness doesn't come from materialism. He wanted to establish the identity and personality of Krishna, because without the presence of Krishna, there cannot be complete spirituality, right? There has to be an object of love, somebody we can direct our loving tendency towards. And Prabhupada was you could say, very insistent upon establishing the personality of Godhead. He is not an ordinary man, although he appeared on this earth as an ordinary human being. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, first chapter, when the sages inquire about the activities of Krishna, it is stated that his appearance as a man bewilders the foolish. No human being could perform the wonderful acts that Krishna performed while he was present on this earth. When Krishna appeared before his father and mother, Vasudeva and Devaki, he appeared with 4 hands. But after the prayers of his parents, he transformed himself into an ordinary child. So we see that as we try to understand the transcendental nature of Godhead, then one way that the acharyas often do it is by citing his superhuman acts, right? One example is how he transforms himself from 4 hands to 2 hands. Other examples are, what are some examples of God's superhuman activities? We know so many. 1 or 2. Lifting Govardhan Hill. Anything else? God's superhuman activities. Raising Mandara mountain on his back. Yeah, what kind of creature can carry a mountain on its back? Playing flute. Yeah, playing a musical instrument while lifting Govardhan Hill. Read, you have anything? Krishna's inconceivable activities. You have anything? Adam? Oh, the Rasa Leela, that's a good example. What kind of man dances with 4.8 billion gopis, something like that, all at once, for the duration of the lifetime of Lord Brahma? And it says that when the gopis got tired, he just wiped their forehead with his hand, and just by the touch of his hand, all their fatigue just disappeared. You try doing that, someone comes to you, they're really tired, you just try wiping their forehead, they'll be like, what are you doing? Give me something to drink, give me something to eat. It doesn't work like that with us. We can't just wipe people's foreheads and all their fatigue just disappears. That's pretty far out. Anybody else who hasn't said anything yet? Adam? Huh? What? Killing Agasura, yeah, killing snakes. So in this way, the Shastras try to help us conceive something about the greatness of God by talking about his activities. Yeah, and then anyways, the purport goes on. So I also found another really interesting section. This is from the Krishna Sandarbha. So the importance of understanding who Krishna is such an important subject that Srila Jiva Goswami wrote two Sandarbhas actually, specifically dealing with the nature of Godhood. One is called the Paramatma Sandarbha, and the other is called the Krishna Sandarbha. And I'm just going to read translations. This is one devotee scholar. We're not going to read his commentary. But I'm just going to read a little bit of the translations of Srila Jiva Goswami's original writings of the Krishna Sandarbha, because it is important to understand how the Acharyas dealt with this topic. And I know it's a bit terse, it's a bit kind of cold philosophy, but until we become convinced of the nature of Krishna's godhood and his, you could say, supremacy, both in this world and in our own hearts, it's going to be very hard to relinquish the false ego. That's actually one of the main reasons why the Shastras talk so much about who God is, because we have to become very, you could say, this sense of sambandha gyan, of who Krishna is, has to become solidified in our hearts. So when we chant his names, when we offer service to him, if we do it with that realization, the conviction that I'm not just serving an ordinary human being, I'm actually serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead, right? That's what creates this accelerated purification within our heart. There has to be that strong sense of sambandha. You know what I'm saying? And we as conditioned, so I can speak for myself, that it's very easy to just do things for Krishna without the conscious awareness that we're serving God, right? Like when we go out to preach, or when we cook for the Lord, when we clean his temple, it's very easy to see those activities as another service, another thing we have to take care of. Somewhere in the back of our heads, we know this is, spiritual. And if somebody stops us and asks us, Prabhu, are you doing devotional service? Then we can immediately give them a nice reply on the spot. You know what I'm saying? But sometimes when we're engaged in the activity, the mind may really be somewhere else. Therefore, this importance of being absorbed in Sambandha Gyan, when we do our devotional service, when we chant, when we serve, when we preach, is what will create accelerated purification. And the primary way of becoming fixed in Sambandha Gyan is by hearing from Acharyas, hearing from the Shastra. In fact, there's a very nice verse from 10th canto. I'm just remembering this now. I didn't plan on sharing this. Let me pull it up here. It's from the 14th chapter, the 10th canto. Yeah, I was reading this a couple of days ago. It says, those who have received the clear vision of knowledge from the sun-like spiritual master can see you in this way as the very soul of all souls, the super soul of everyone's own self. Thus, understanding your original personality, they're able to cross over the ocean of illusory material existence. Very beautiful point. So it's making 3 points. One receives knowledge from the sun-like spiritual master. The spiritual master provides illumination. What is that knowledge? That you see Krishna as the super soul of everyone's own self. And third, because you understand that, you're able to cross over the ocean of illusory material existence. And this verse comes in the 14th chapter when Parikshit Maharaj asks Shukadev Goswami that famous question, how is it that the gopis and the cows were able to love Krishna more, even though he's not their son? Right? Everybody knows this pastime, I'm sure. Right? Krishna became the cowherd boys and calves. Maybe Reed doesn't know this pastime, but he'll come across it one day when he reads the scriptures, right? Krishna once became the cowherd boys and calves. It's a long story why he does, but it's because Brahma kidnaps them. He kidnaps Krishna's friends and all the cows. So Krishna replicates himself into all the cowherd boys and calves. And then he goes home as the cowherd boys and calves. And the mothers and the cows don't know that their sons have now become Krishna, And interestingly, their love for their sons and the calves grows. But they don't know that this is Krishna. You follow what I'm saying? It's like you've been kidnapped. So Krishna, this is a very bad analogy, but just to get you a sense of the pastime. So Krishna now, as you, goes home, and your mother looks at you and thinks, I love this boy so much. I love him more than I love him yesterday. That doesn't usually happen, you know. People, it's not like the love that you have for other human beings just automatically just grows all of a sudden the next day. So Parikshit Maharaj is a little bit bewildered. How did that happen? Especially because they didn't know that their children were Krishna, you know. So then Shukadev Goswami explains very beautifully that in this world we love things because they have a relationship to us, right? Like for example, that's Charanesh's thermos. He likes his thermos. If it gets lost, he'll be a little upset. If I lose my thermos, he'll feel bad, but it's not going to hurt him. You know what I'm saying? But if he loses his thermos, right, or Param Karuna, he has his van, he has his nice car. If those things get lost, he feels, oh, my car. If my car something happens, oh, Harisham, I feel bad for you, but if something happens to his car, right, Param? So yeah, this Jai Jagannath always tells this story because I used to live with one devotee called Bhakta Luke, and one morning, Bhakta Luke comes to me in the kitchen. I was cleaning the kitchen. It was like right after breakfast or something, and Bhakta Luke goes, Himanshu, this is before I got initiated. He's like, Himanshu, my laptop got stolen. I was like, oh, that's really bad. I'm sorry to hear your laptop got stolen, Prabhu. Even though we used to live together. And then he looks at me and goes, and yours is gone too. And I was like, what? I flipped out on the spot. I was like, who did this? You know, let's call the police. Let's check the security cameras. I was flipping out. Yeah, why? Because that laptop has a relationship with me. So Shukadev Goswami explains, the attachment to things in this world is based on its relationship with the body. Right? Like you care about your mom, not my mom. You care about your mom because she has a relationship with your body. The dearness of all things in this world is based on its relationship with our body. And the reason why we consider the body important is because it has a relationship with the soul. Shukadev Goswami explains this point. That's why you consider your body important, not my body. Right? Why is that? Because your body has a relationship with your soul. You identify with this body and you think, this is me, the young Ukrainian fired up brahmachari. This is me, right? So you care about that body, not my body. But why does that happen? Why do you care about your soul so much? Why does every human being in this world want to live? Why does every cockroach, every dog, every fish, every human have this self-born, inborn propensity to want to survive? Nobody wants to die, isn't it? The survival mechanism is what permeates this material world. Biologists study this, that every species wants to procreate. Every species knows, every animal that's born in this world, every little tiny bacteria cell that is born understands two things. I must eat and I must procreate. Right? They eat in their own way. They consume other bacteria, other cells, or other animals. But it's just like an inbuilt mechanism programmed into the brain of every living entity. I must eat and I must live. Right? In fact, Mother Urmila, in her book, Essence Seekers, gives this very beautiful analogy that when you put a seed in the earth, it's dark. The seed has no idea which way the sun is, which way the depth of the earth is, right? But just instinctively, the sprout always comes up. Isn't that interesting? The sprout always comes up because inborn within that seed is the knowledge that up above is the sky, the cloud, the sun, where I can get nourishment from this is how I can live, you know. So the propensity to live is kind of programmed to every conditioned soul. And why is that is what Shukadev Goswami explains in this chapter. He says because that soul has a relationship with Krishna. Krishna is the soul of your soul. So because of that relationship between the soul and Krishna, the soul acquires significance, a sense of, I want to exist, I'm important, I want to survive. Does that make sense? So that knowledge is what we acquire from hearing from the spiritual master, that Krishna is the soul of the soul. So like that, I was just illustrating that, this is why we have to hear about these things from the Shastras, from the Guru, so that that knowledge of Sambandha Gyan can be solidified within our hearts. So just to give us a little taste, I'll read a little bit of Srila Jiva Goswami's Krishna Sandarbha, which a lot of it just deals with establishing the transcendental nature of Krishna, his form, his dham, his activities, his qualities, how they're all non-human. And I'm wondering how to do this because it is quite philosophical. I thought I would just read it and discuss it, but now that I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, well, it's 8:04. Let's see here. Yeah, let's just read a little bit. Why not? Even if we don't fully understand it, it's the words of the Acharya. It's always purifying. Okay, Anucheta 106, the supremacy of Krishna's form. and dham. So the whole Krishna Sandarbha is divided into something called anuchedas, which you can consider anuchedas to be like small little sections, and each section has a heading and a particular topic. So this particular anucheda 106 is called Krishna's two-handed form is not material. Right? That's not a material human form. And again, this is at the heart of what this verse is dealing with. This verse is talking about understanding the inconceivable nature of Krishna, who appears without an apparent source, without an apparent foundation. Right? Just like things in this world appear with foundations, Krishna appears without a foundation. So that's what this verse is also addressing, that Krishna's two-handed form is not material. Therefore, it was rightly expressed in Anucheda 98 that all those statements that seem to indicate that Krishna's two-handed form is material and hence temporary should be re-evaluated in a different light. In other words, earlier in the Krishna Sandarbha, he looked at certain verses that might give you the impression that Krishna's two-handed form is actually material. And Srila Jiva Goswami is saying that's not the case. Those verses have to be re-examined, re-understood. Right? Just like in the Ishopanishad, there's a famous verse that says Krishna has no Krishna has no qualities, right? He's nirguna, and it's true, he doesn't have envy also. And Prabhupada, how does Prabhupada deal with that? What does that mean that Krishna has no qualities? How do the impersonalists deal with it, and how do we deal with it? Does anybody remember? Mm-hmm. Yeah, kind of what you're saying, but it's not that Krishna is full of qualities, it's that his qualities are not material. That's what nirguna means. So Krishna doesn't have any material qualities, his qualities are all transcendental. In the same way, sometimes in the Shastras, we find these verses that seem to indicate that Krishna's two-handed form is material. But it's not material, it's the height of transcendence. That's what Srila Jiva Goswami is saying. So he says, for example, according to the above analysis, both the four-handed as well as the two-handed forms are suitable objects of meditation, yet Mother Devaki's request to Krishna to conceal his four-handed form was made lest everyone recognize him as Bhagavan, because that form was popularly known as such, right? So why did Mother Devaki request Krishna to transform from a four-handed to a two-handed form in the 10th canto? Because she was worried that if you imagine a four-handed person walking down the street, it's going to make it pretty obvious that's God, And remember, she was trying to conceal the fact that she had given birth to God, because Kamsa wanted to kill her son, because Kamsa knew her son was going to kill me. So she requested her son, can you please transform from a four-handed to a two-handed form? Thus, out of fear of Kamsa, she said, O Madhusudana, please do not let that sinful Kamsa know of your birth to me. Additionally, Devaki asked Krishna to hide his four-handed form out of a sense of embarrassment, quote, due to the ridicule she would have to endure from those of material vision, indicated by the words mamsa druk, those with eyes of flesh. The other issue is somebody could make, people would make fun of her child. Like, what is this? There's something abnormal about him, It's like when people have sometimes people have like 6 fingers. Have you ever seen that? They have like an extra finger growing. So nobody would consider that to be something people might make fun. Oh, what is something weird about your child? He has 4 hands. Such people are ignorant of the reality of Krishna's leelas, such as that of his birth, which are manifestations of the intrinsic potency of Bhagavan. Devaki's discomfiture in this regard is indicated in the following statement. Discomfiture means her discomfort, her feelings of discomfort. And this verse is quoted from the 10th canto. That you, the Supreme Person, who amply accommodate this entire cosmos within your own body, at the end of the cosmic night, have entered my womb will certainly make me the object of people's derision, right? Because people might not believe. How can the Supreme Lord, who is the source of everything, be inside your womb? People won't believe that. So what Srila Jiva Goswami is doing is he's pointing out the reasons behind why Devaki asked her four-handed son to become two-handed, and he's pointing out that it's because people don't understand the transcendental nature of God. So either they'll make fun of her, or on the other hand, she might get caught because people might figure out that he's actually God and he has 4 hands. But mainly, people might not understand, and therefore they might deride her. Furthermore, Devaki did not make this request with the intent to suggest that his other human-like form was lacking any eligibility as an object of meditation. Rather, she did so because of its secrecy, as expressed in statements such as the Supreme Brahman disguised in human form. Right? It's not like the four-handed form is not an ideal object of meditation. But she's pointing out that the Bhagavatam says the Supreme Lord disguises himself in a human form. In other words, that two-handed form is the ideal, you could say, way to bewilder living entities. You know what I'm saying? When you have four hands, you're just putting it out there. I'm divine, I'm God, I'm superhuman. But when Krishna is two-handed, then, it's even more, you could say, bewildering that he could be the Supreme Lord. There's nothing else seemingly extraordinary about him. He has two hands, he has two legs. I have two hands, I have two legs. So that's why the Shastra is saying the Supreme Brahman disguises himself in a human form. It was the same with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in this world, many people could understand that he was Krishna himself. Because why? He had two hands, two legs. He walked, he ate like other human beings. He lived on earth with all the other associates. So that's why some people saw Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and they couldn't accept that he was God. Some people who had some purity of heart, or those people who Mahaprabhu wanted them to know of his divinity, they could somehow appreciate, right? So what's a good example? When Mahaprabhu goes to Kashi, what is the name of that sannyasi? Charan Shru? Prakashananda Saraswati. When he saw Mahaprabhu wanted Prakashananda Saraswati to understand a little bit who he is. He wanted to transform his heart. So when he saw Mahaprabhu, he said to him, "You're glowing like Narayan. Who are you?" He was completely taken aback by Mahaprabhu's beauty, his extraordinary, you could say, effulgence, right? But even he couldn't fully understand how he is God. He needed further mercy from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his devotees to actually fully realize how Mahaprabhu is the supreme transcendental personality, right? So that's what it means, the Supreme Brahman disguised in human form. Like that. It's just so nice. I mean, we could literally just spend the whole class just going through this commentary and just discussing it line by line. Yeah. I'll give you another example here. Okay, we'll read just a little bit more. In the Sri Gopal Tapani Upanishad, the suitability of both of these forms as objects of meditation is described. So this is a quote from the Gopal Tapani Upanishad that's saying how both the four-handed form and the two-handed form are both suitable objects of meditation. By meditating on me, specifically in Mathura, one attains moksha. I am situated on the blossoming eight-petal lotus in the heart. Right? So if one can meditate on Krishna sitting on the lotus of one's heart, one will be qualified to attain liberation. And the liberation that the Bhakti Shastras talk about, of course, is not the impersonal form of liberation, where we merge into the Brahman, but rather attaining a spiritual body and residing with Krishna. In the midst of this description regarding the object of meditation, it is said, he has four hands, bedecked with a conch, disc, bow, lotus, and club. And in the concluding verse on this topic, it is also said, alternatively, one should meditate upon me constantly within the heart in my form holding a flute and a horn. Similar meditations on the two-handed form are recommended in the Agamas. Okay, I'm not sure how to connect that statement to this earlier statement. But it seems to be a continuation. Oh yeah, I get it. It's a continuation of the idea that one should meditate on God either with four hands or with two hands, either or. Yeah, like that. Anyway, so it keeps going. I wanted to conclude with one last point, which is something that Srila Prabhupada often said. He said, don't try to see God, but try to act in such a way that God sees you. And as I was preparing for this class and I was thinking about this topic, I realized that no matter how much we hear about Krishna's godhood, right, his form, his transcendence, ultimately to actually see him and understand him requires his mercy. And one acquires the mercy of Krishna by living in such a way that Krishna feels impelled to give you his mercy, right? So if you think about this statement, don't try to see God, but act in such a way that God tries to see us. It's a very deep point because, in our day-to-day life, as we're going through this world, as we're interacting with other people, when nobody, or even when we're by ourselves, are we carrying ourselves in such a way that Krishna might be pleased with us? Because when he's pleased with us, that's when he'll start to give us a sense of who he is, right? There's a very beautiful story. Hari Parshad Prabhu was here recently, a Sanskrit scholar from India, and he was telling us about one ancient Bhagavatam commentator whose name was Hari Suri Das. Ancient Bhagavatam commentator lived in around the 19th century. And he had a certain desire to see Krishna, right? So what did he do? He took a vow. It's a very interesting vow. He would get up in the morning and he would chant 12 chapters of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Then he would recite the entire Vishnu Sahasranam. Then he would do cow seva. Only after these three things were complete would he put a morsel of food in his mouth. He did this for 12 years. And his reason for doing this was because he wanted a darshan of Krishna, right? And then at the end of those 12 years, he writes in one of his books in Sanskrit, he explains how one day he was in the Goshala doing cow seva, and then this hand, he felt a hand on his shoulder. And as soon as that hand touched his shoulder, he could tell this is not an ordinary hand. This is something divine. And then a voice said, I've accepted you, my child, into the spiritual world. But I have some service for you. And then Krishna told Harisori that when I appeared in this world 5,000 years ago, there were some desires in my heart for why I perform my pastimes. There were these seeds of desires in my heart for pastimes that I performed. I want you to reveal this to the world. You write commentary on the Bhagavatam, and I will reveal to you. I will inspire you from within on giving deeper meaning and explanation to my pastimes. So, and then Hari Parsha Prabhu, very mercifully for the whole week, he was just translating Harisori's commentary on the Damodar Leela, and explaining the different reasons why, for example, why does the milk boil over? Why does Krishna grab the churning rod? Why is the rope not able to tie the Supreme Lord? So we've heard a lot of these explanations already from some of our other acharyas, but Harisori gives even more very unique, very novel explanations inspired by Krishna within the heart. But the point of the story is something different. The point of the story is, if we want to see Krishna, there's nothing that we can't force him. We can't say, Krishna, you must appear before me. You know what I'm saying? We can simply, with great humility, just act in such a way, according to what the acharyas have said, hoping that this might please the Lord, and that one day he might give us his darshan. You know what I'm saying? It's like that, and it's a very humbling position to be in. It's like we have no idea if Krishna will ever reveal himself to us. At least I can't say for sure that Krishna will ever reveal himself to me. I don't know. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. It's totally up to him. You know what I'm saying? But I have no other option. I must keep going. I must keep chanting. I must keep serving. I must keep hearing from my guru. I must keep studying the Shastras. I must keep trying to be Krishna conscious in the hope that someday, maybe someday, the heart of Radharani melts, the heart of Krishna melts. And then they look at me and they think, wow, this poor fool, he's been trying for so many lifetimes. Let us give him our darshan, And that day will be the most glorious day of my entire existence, right? When you actually see Krishna face to face. But it's not in our control. It's not in our control. What we can do is the life we live on a day-to-day basis, the decisions we make, the mindset that we carry in our hearts as we move about this world. That is in our control. And when Krishna sees that, repeatedly, that's the other thing too. It has to be done repeatedly, right? Like if I come up to you, Prabhu, and I say, I would love to get to know you, but then I never say that to you again for the rest of your life, you won't take me so seriously. But if I come every single day, I'm like, Prabhu, you're here with Parma Karuna. I want to know who you are. Tell me about yourself every day. Then finally you might be like, wow, this guy's serious. He really wants to get to know who I am. Okay, then you'll sit down and start telling me your journey from Ukraine to San Francisco, right? The saga of your life. Why? Because I'm doing it every single day. It's the same with Krishna. We have to do it. We have to, through our actions, we have to show God every single day that I'm interested in a relationship with you. And it's that repeated expression of our desire for a relationship, of our desire to get to know Krishna, by following the activities that have been prescribed, right? A lot of people think they can just know God by doing whatever they feel like doing. Don't we meet that sometimes in the New Age scene, in the yoga scene? Just be who you are. Just be who you are and just give love to the world. What the heck does that mean? What do you mean just be who you are and give love to the world? I don't know what that means. It's so vague, Basically what they're saying is just go with your mind. Just go with the flow of your mind. Just whatever you feel like doing, that's the right thing to do, Yeah, but that's dangerous because some people's minds are very unhealthy and some people's minds are telling them, let me drive across the street and kill old people, So does that mean they should just go with their mind and do as they feel, So how do we determine what should we do and what we shouldn't do? Even people who speak like that, they have a moral compass. They will say, no, that's not right. That's not right. But why do you say that's not right? You just said, go with your mind, do whatever you feel like doing. Even they will say that's not right. So where does that come from? It comes from some inner moral compass. Either it comes from it says, well, it's wrong. According to religious books, you shouldn't kill people. Either that or it just doesn't feel right. So in the same way, our inner guide is the instructions of the Shastra and the sadhus. They tell us, do this, don't do this, right? So they've told us, do this and don't do this. So we try to do that with the hopes that one day we'll get Krishna's darshan, because otherwise it's inconceivable. Who can actually capture God? Who can actually make God appear before us? It's not possible, And this month of Kartik is is an amazing month for making great advancement in this journey towards Krishna, right? Because my very good friend Deva Madhava said, some people say it's a sale, I say it's double time. In other words, it's like you do the same work you're already doing, but you're just getting double the pay for it. So if, imagine for every book you distribute in the month of Kartik, you're getting 10 times the benefit. That's pretty good. For every round you chant, you get thousands of times the benefit. And if you do that same devotional service in the mindset that you're sitting in Vrindavan in a holy dham, you get millions of times the benefit. So it's just quadruples and multiplies so much the benefit of doing devotional service in the month of Kartik. So this is a very special month to increase our devotional service and take vows and do something a little extra to show Krishna that we're interested in a relationship with him. So that was my presentation. I'm sorry if it was a little long, or it's 8:20 now. I usually like to stop at 8:20. 8:30 is when class ends, and then that way if anybody has anything they would like to add or some correction or anything, please feel free to add it now. Param Karuna has a comment. Just give me a mic.
About when the people explain that we are worshiping the anthropomorphic forms. So let's say we're not worshiping anthropomorphic forms. We're worshiping lion. We're worshiping tortoise. We're worshiping God in the form of
Oh yeah, good point.
They will not even believe that also. Let's say, what do you want to believe then?
Yeah.
Zoomorphic.
Zoomorphic. Yeah, there we go. The accused of zoomorphism.
You're doing zoomorphism. What do you want to believe? You don't believe that we worship Krishna or God as a two-handed form, or God as a zoomorphism, as a lion or tortoise.
Is it on, Param?
Not working properly.
I can't. Yeah, there we go. Now it's on.
So the thing is that people who don't want to believe, and as you told that to believe in Krishna, either what I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, the person should be very strong.
Person should be
very strong to convince him that Krishna, or as you know that verse, Nayam Atma Prabhachene Nadapyo Namedhyana Bahuna Shrutena. That Krishna cannot be understood by expert explanations, by studying Vedic scriptures, by expert hearing also. The only way Krishna can be understood is when Krishna chooses himself to reveal him to you.
right.
So, and I really appreciate your point that our only hope is just keep on doing our service. And what way we are doing our service, what is our attitude to our service, where we are lacking in service, correcting every day. And that's our hope that keeps us going. That one day Krishna will be pleased and he might put a hand on me.
Mm.
You know.
Yeah, that'll be a magical day, right? Imagine you're packing your book bag and you feel Krishna's hand. He says, "Can I help you?" You're like, "Whoa!" You'll start crying. It'll be so special. Anybody else? Jaybal, oh, Charya? There you go.
My question was, the objective of getting Krishna's darshan, or the summit goal of our practice, is seeing Krishna synonymous with our goal.
In a way, yeah, because Krishna will only reveal himself to us when we have love for him. So the goal is to have love for Krishna, right? In order to love him and serve him. And that darshan of Krishna only happens when the heart is saturated with love. Krishna won't just, yeah.
It's mentioned that many people saw Krishna, but when he was during his Leela.
Yeah.
But just by that, it didn't actually generate within them prema.
Yeah, I guess in a devotional setting, when we use the word darshan, it means like, that darshan imbued with proper sambandha gyan, proper maturation of the devotional spirit. Just like in the example of Harisori Prabhu, the darshan that he had was based on years and years of devotional sacrifice and worship. You know what I mean? And so in a devotional context for people like us also, when we have darshan of Krishna, it will be after years and years, maybe lifetimes of practice, by which point the heart is saturated with feelings of love and devotion. And it's not, yeah, you're right, because in Krishna's pastimes, yes, when he appeared on earth, many people saw Krishna, but they didn't appreciate him as anything more than just an ordinary human being, right? Duryodhana wanted to arrest Krishna. He was seeing Krishna, he thought, let me arrest him, he's just a magician, right? But we're not hoping for that kind of darshan. We're hoping for a darshan where when we see Krishna, it's very clear, this is my Supreme Lord. He's my worshipable object, and he has come in order to give me some service, to give me his mercy. That's the darshan I was referring to. So could have clarified, yeah. But yeah, not the kind of darshan that or other people had in his pastimes where nothing changed. you know.
Interesting. The washerman that Krishna
Yeah.
I heard is that he had been performing severe austerities and penances to see Krishna, to see God, but his heart was not clean,
Right.
and it was not selfless, and so he got to see Krishna, but we know what the result was.
Yeah. Special mercy. Yeah, and that's why the importance of purifying the heart according to the proper procedures is so important, right? Because if we just try to purify the heart according to our own idea, then it might not actually be becoming devoted and pure. It might just be becoming proud, actually.
The motive for Krishna's pleasure.
Right? What did you say?
I said the motive for Krishna's pleasure.
Yeah, the motive for Krishna's pleasure. Exactly, yeah. Krishna may be satisfied. He may be pleased. Yeah. Jai Baldev had his hand up. Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you for your class. Just in Acharya Mishra's comments and your comments that highlighted that really made a lot of sense, where he was mentioning the washerman performed so many austerities to see Krishna, yet when he saw him, he had the wrong mentality. And you said a statement in verification of that, and this goes back to related to the original point I was going to make, where you made the point that we shouldn't try to see Krishna. We should act in such a way that Krishna wants to see us. And we see in the scriptures that there's basically one of my favorite points. There's two kinds of austerities or difficulties. Those who perform the difficulty of honoring others, and those who perform difficulties to be honored by others. And Prabhupada makes it a nice point that I try to keep in mind all the time in the 7th canto, 5th chapter, verse 12 of the Bhagavatam, his purport. He says that we should not be proud of our own service, our own chanting, our own whatever. These are austerities, chanting, following Kadashi, but we should glorify the service of another one. Because what happens is you become competitive. It's very easy to perform 1,000,000 rounds, obviously not physically, but if we had a choice, like I'll just mention one pastime maybe you could expand on this. Indra, he performed 100 horse yagyas to attain the position of Indra. But when he saw that Prithu Maharaj was going to pass his world record, Guinness Book of World Records, he did everything he did to stop that. So we can see, and sometimes, I remember one devotee told me, they was like, I've been chanting for so many years, and this other devotee, they've only been in Krishna consciousness a year, and they're getting initiated over me. And so that's austerity, to appreciate, people. We could chant so many rounds, but we see that we're not in control. Just chanting the Hare Krishna Maha 1,000,000 rounds for many years doesn't mean we'll be distinguished. So my question is, what are some steps we could do to perform the humility-producing austerity instead of the ego-producing austerity? Because the ego-producing austerity doesn't guarantee us we're going to be in the spotlight. We see that. So I don't know if my question was clear, but maybe you could explain
Well,
some of those.
I would say the humility producing austerity is that which is given to us. So I think many times I notice devotees do a lot of things without like taking shelter of like, sometimes our Diksha gurus are really far away, but in our locality we need some like, local mentors, we need Shiksha gurus, we need superiors and elders. And when we do what they're asking us to do, it produces humility. It just naturally does, because we usually do what we like to do and what we're good at, but their instructions are usually forcing us to act, think, and do in a different way. So when we act according to higher instruction, working under the guidance of local, like, our mentors, our Shiksha gurus, it produces a lot of humility, because we realize, oh, like, this is not something I'm very good at. This is something that's a little bit difficult for me, and that quality of following the instructions of a devotee actually purifies the heart, and it creates humility in the heart. So I think, at least in my humble experience, if one wants to become humble, then one has to work more and more under guidance. And when one learns to work under guidance, then one naturally develops a lot of humility, because it takes humility to work under guidance. The story is there in the Ramayana, how, so you know Shatrughna was one of the brothers, right? And it's described that Shatrughna is even more worshipful than Bharat. Everybody knows the story of Ramayana? You know the story of Ramayana? In a nutshell, four brothers, Shatrughna, Bharat, Lakshman, and Ram, right? Four brothers. Ram was exiled to the forest, even though he was supposed to be king, because Bharat's mother became a little envious. She was influenced by some bad associations. So Dashrath exiles Ram to the forest along with Lakshman, and then appoints Bharat as the king. But Bharat is such a loyal brother that instead of taking the throne, he takes Ram's shoes and puts them on the throne, right? And then goes and lives in a hut in the forest, wearing exactly the same clothes that Lord Ram is wearing in the forest, eating the same kind of food, okay? Because he didn't want to enjoy the kingdom. This isn't mine, this is my brother's, He didn't agree with his mother. So he had such amazing character that he placed his brother's shoes on the throne and went and lived in a hut and wore tree bark and ate berries and fruits and wild roots, just like his brother Ram was doing in the forest, right? So that seems to be a very glorious character quality, isn't it? But it's described that actually even more than Bharat, Shatrughna is even more worshipable. Shatrughna was the youngest of the four brothers. Why does it say that? Specifically, it's explained, the reason why it says that is because Shatrughna was humble enough to accept Bharat's command, even though he wasn't the rightful king. The rightful king was actually Lord Ram. So because of that quality of Shatrughna's to accept the authority and command of Bharat, even though the rightful ruler was Lord Ram, Shatrughna is glorified. So this example is very nice, that humility comes when we learn to, and because when we work under guidance, we get chastised. Like now you're in the van, right? You have a boss, and if you don't act properly, hey, you're gonna get chastised. You have to become humble. Either you become humble or you break. There's no other option. So I found practically that if devotees work more under guidance and work with mentors, shiksha gurus, and take on austerities and services that are given to them versus things that we just create for ourselves, then it generates a lot of humility. I have so many stories from living with your brother. So many stories. Your brother was very good at teaching humility by giving services and instructions. You know what I'm saying? So like that, I think that could work. Madan Gopal, you have something you would like to add? Maybe you have so much experience in Krishna consciousness. Maybe you can add something. Mother Krishna Archana, something you would like to add, or it's fine. Okay, Jai Srimad, thank you for your attention. Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Gaur Premanandi. Fine.